Tears of the Kingdom may be the ultimate love letter to Studio Ghibli, having connections to many of the films directed by Hayao Miyazaki. From little details and character designs to large themes in the story, the influence of Studio Ghibli has been evident since Breath of the Wild, and continues to be an inspiration in Tears of the Kingdom. There have been some really great videos analyzing the influence that the films Castle in the Sky and Princess Mononoke have had on the two games. So, if you haven't watched these videos, I've linked them below and highly recommend checking those out, as I'm going to avoid fully retreading their ideas. Since those videos came out though, we've seen a lot of new footage that gives us even more parallels to look at. So in this video, I want to build off that work and take a look at these new connections to Studio Ghibli. Let's start with our main characters, as both Link and Zelda's stories and designs seem to be taking a lot of inspiration from the heroes and heroines of Ghibli. First, I want to take a look at what we know about Zelda's story and how it connects to Ghibli. Our story starts out with a straight-laced, British-accented princess type, who gets a major haircut, travels to the past, where she seemingly may try to impact events in the future. Does this sound familiar to anyone? As far as Zelda's story goes, I am starting to see a few overlaps with Sophie's time travel from Howl's Moving Castle. In particular, these moments from the trailer where Zelda falls into darkness, and then in the past calls on Link to find her, strongly parallel moments from Sophie's journey in Howl's Moving Castle. But when Zelda arrives in the past, we see her with a new look, wearing what seems to be an ancient outfit with tribal jewelry and face paint. Her appearance in the game is strikingly similar to San from Princess Mononoke, and based on how much of an influence that movie seems to have had on the game as a whole, that makes a lot of sense to me. Of course, we're also following the story of her knight counterpart, Link. Our hero begins the game by having his arm essentially cursed by a malevolent spirit goop, which, as we have seen, does serious damage to both Link and his sword. Despite this corruption, he's granted special powers that give him the ability to manipulate objects and even build magically powered vehicles. The most obvious parallel in Link's story is the corrupted arm, which is almost a shot-for-shot recreation of the scene of Prince Ashitaka in Princess Mononoke. Zelda has done an extensive analysis of the ties between Link's and Ashitaka's stories, so I won't dive too deep into this here, but needless to say, this connection does seem to be pretty clear. But another interesting aspect of our hero's story is tied to Howl from Howl's Moving Castle. Howl also struggles with a magical corruption, although self-inflicted, but his powers are not unlike that of Link's Ultra Hand ability. For instance, the way he shuts down this airship kind of reminds me of how Link works with Zonaite technology. And although the function of the moving castle is different, it's implied to be powered by Howl, and its pieced together nature definitely reminds me of the kind of vehicles we'll be able to slap together in Tears of the Kingdom. Anyway, now that we've covered specifics related to Link and Zelda, let's look at the story as a whole. In this section, I want to talk about the connections to the movie Castle in the Sky, also known as Laputa. As others have pointed out, there are some pretty obvious influences from this story. Like the Laputians, the Zonaite appear to be an ancient civilization that has long ago been seemingly banished to a hidden land in the sky, perhaps because they became too powerful. In new footage, we've seen even more ties to this story. Like in the movie, our hero will explore ruins on Sky Islands, which were once home to an ancient civilization, but now seem to be home only to some semi-friendly robotic caretakers. Like the robots in Laputa, our construct friends have been seen to protect the islands, but are also capable of attacking. There's a chance the Zonaite people are still alive and we just haven't seen them yet, but if not, the construct robots seem to be protecting the remnants of their civilization, possibly ages after their disappearance, not unlike the Laputian robots. The starting Great Sky Island may potentially also be home to a spirit man, who may sometimes take the form of a dragon. Kind of like someone else we know from Ghibli films, Haku from Spirited Away, a sometimes humanoid, sometimes dragon spirit who serves as a guide to the main character. As I've mentioned in previous videos, this is a role that I believe this character, who Zelda tubers are currently calling Richard, will fill in the story, and if that's the case, it would provide yet another connection to another Miyazaki movie. We've also found out from recent gameplay previews that the new Zonaite powers are tied to a material called Zonaite. This, again, is not unlike Laputa, where their civilization's strength appears to be drawn from a crystal called Aetherium in the English translation, or Volucite in the Japanese script. These crystals are used to power Laputian technology and even keep their island afloat. From what we can gather of the main story so far, it seems that a large component of the quest will be finding the so-called Tears of the Kingdom, magic stone relics that may grant the user access to Zonaite abilities, which again is not unlike the crystal pendant worn by Sheeta in Laputa, who, like Princess Zelda, is saved by her stone when she takes a fall, although with a different kind of magic. We also see Zelda and her ancient counterpart wearing the stone as a pendant, perhaps it will continue to serve a defensive function like it did for Sheeta. One other possible connection to Castle in the Sky that we haven't actually seen, but I believe will be the case, is the fate of the Great Deku Tree. In Castle in the Sky, Laputa's island is actually built off of a large tree. We know that the Deku Tree and Korok Forest as a whole are missing in Tears of the Kingdom, and because I'm in denial that we have to see the Deku Tree die again, I'm hoping that we're going to see the tree or even the whole forest having risen into the sky, which, if the case, would obviously be visually very similar to the movie. There were so many details in Breath of the Wild that seem to be paying homage to Studio Ghibli, and Tears of the Kingdom appears to be taking that even further. As a huge fan of both Ghibli and Zelda, I'm of course super excited to see this. Since the release of the Mario movie this year, there's been a lot of talk about the future of the hypothetical Nintendo cinematic universe. And in my opinion, Ghibli is the only studio that could do a Zelda movie justice, as that would feel like a really natural partnership after all the groundwork laid in the games. Anyway, mini rant aside, hope you enjoyed this video. If there are any other Ghibli references you'd like to see in the game, feel free to let me know in the comments. As always, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.